Hey everybody, it's James here, and in this video we're going to be looking at wild foods that can be foraged in summer, but specifically wild berries that you can find, because these make a great introduction to kids to the world of foraging. I reckon most children have probably picked some blackberries from the hedgerow in their time. It's the first wild food that we all get to know. But there are other wild berries that maybe you've not considered and a lot of kids have never even heard of, which are easy to recognise and very tasty. And they're found pretty commonly as well across the countryside. So today we're going to be looking at some of the other wild berries you can eat that aren't blackberries, and then also what you could do with them. So I've come to a hedgerow at the edge of our village, right next to the playground. And the whole hedge here is covered with wild raspberry. You can see the tall canes growing up, sticking out of the hedgerow. They look a bit like blackberries, which we know from later in the year. It's probably the most well-known berry that we forage out the hedgerow as kids. But the wild raspberry comes a bit earlier in the year, and of course it's red, not a black-purple colour. But they are really good as anything that you buy in a shop. A little bit smaller, but very, very tasty. And oh, you've got to resist not just picking them off the branch and eating them straight away. Although, of course, do that. But save a few, because we're going to do something special with them when we get home. Now, there's a couple of things that tell me we've got wild raspberry in the hedgerow here. Firstly, they're a lot less spiky than the blackberry, or bramble as it's known. And secondly, the underside of the leaves is really silvery, very white underneath. And that's something to look out for. But of course, number one thing to look out for is the fruit themselves. Hey, we can see here that some of these raspberries are not yet ripe yet. And that means we can come back to this bush again and again over the next few weeks and harvest even more raspberries. So once you've found a spot, remember it, because you're going to want to go back. Well, I'm really pleased with what I've got there. As many wild raspberries as I've ever foraged in one place, so that's excellent. I could keep going, but let's leave some for the birds and for other people to find as well. On to the next fruit. Now, our next wild food is up there in this tree. For anyone who likes cherries, maybe bought from the supermarket, did you know that there's a wild cherry? And you might find it growing somewhere near you. So let's take a closer look at that. Now, if you're somebody who loves cherries, you'll know exactly what to be looking out for, but here's the wild variety dangling down from their stalks here. There's loads, hundreds of them all over this single tree. The trick is getting to them all, because they're all high up, of course. Now, when we buy cherries in the shops, they're a dark cherry red colour, almost purple black in colour. These don't quite look like that. They're not quite fully ripe yet, but they are perfectly edible. They're perfectly fine and sweet. Oh, there is a big stone in the middle, so when you bite into it, just beware of that. That was yellow and orange in colour though, but perfectly fine. The reason why we have to eat them a little bit unripe before they go that true cherry colour is because the birds beat us to them. So you've got to watch a cherry tree and check for the moment when those fruits are ripe, and that's when you harvest, because if you don't get them quick, the birds will beat you to them. I can already see and hear the birds all moving around in the top of the tree here, so I better stop talking and get picking. Yoink! Well, that's another good haul of fruit there. Enough wild cherries, certainly for what I need. Again, there's plenty more in the tree, but I can always come back. For our next berry, I've actually come to the back of my garden where I have a bit of a wild patch that's gone a bit crazy. But growing here amongst all these bushes is the red currant. And although I've got it in my garden, it's actually a berry that you can find out in the countryside, especially on woodland edges where the berries can get some sunlight in order to grow. And just like the name suggests, they look like little red currants hanging in bunches. But what do they taste like? Let's try a couple. Oh, very strong. A little bit tart, but very nice. They'll add a bit of punch to whatever you're going to make with all these berries. Here's a typical leaf of the red currant, just so you can get to know the plant. It looks very much like the leaves of blackcurrant. Hey, have a look under here. There's loads of red currants waiting to be harvested. Let's get some of those now. Great stuff. Ooh, yum yum yum. Just one word of warning if you are going to pick the red currant. There are a couple of other plants growing out in the wild that have little red berries like this, which are poisonous, that you don't want to touch. So if you're going to forage this one, just get to know the plant, get a good field guide, and you shouldn't go far wrong. Now this next berry is one that you might have to get a bit more adventurous for, because you might have to hike yourself up a mountain depending on where you live. You might already live on one, but I don't, so I've come halfway up this mountain here and I've got a way to go yet. I'm heading for those trees in the distance. That's where we're going to find one of my favourite berries, which could be found all the way from mid-July to early September. They are well worth the hike, so let me show you what I'm talking about. Follow me. And here we are at the top of the mountain, and there is plenty of what I've come looking for. It's this low-growing green shrub that's carpeting the woodland floor here. And this is a great place to look for this berry because the sheep can't get in and munch them all up. They're fenced out, and the windberries have taken over. That's what we're after. Now, we call them windberries in Wales. In Scotland, they're known as blaeberries, but they're most commonly known as bilberries. But you should think of them best as a wild blueberry. They're smaller than the blueberries you get in the shops, but I tell you, if you like blueberries, try windberries because the flavour is 10 times that of a blueberry that you buy in the shop. They really pack a punch. Let's go gather some. Here they are. This is what we're after. You can see they're like little blueberries, as I said, but they get to a good size and they are very, very tasty. Often you'll find these berries growing in uplands and moorlands, and they will be usually under woodlands. So you're looking under oak trees and birch trees. That's what you're looking for, but I'm definitely having those. They look great. They're going in the basket. Here's some great examples of the fruit doing very well, even better than last year when I was foraging for them. Just a quick note about the leaves to help you recognise it. They've got a glossy quality to them. They're small, they're oval, and they've got a slightly serrated edge. But really, like all these fruits we're talking about in this video, it's the berries that can help you recognise it at this time of year. Now, when you're gathering your berries in your basket, you can use your hands. That's going to work just fine. You've got to be careful not to squash them. They're quite delicate. You've got to be careful not to eat them all as well. They're very irresistible. But what I like to use is this little tool. It's called a berry comb. And you literally comb it into the bush and then comb away, and the berries are collected in the bottom here. And that works really well. It helps speed things up. So if you get into foraging wild berries, get a berry comb. There are worse places that you could come to gather your food. Much better than coming to the supermarket. Let's go up a mountain and get some sweet treats instead. It's much more satisfying if you've picked the food yourself, because there's the whole story of gathering it as well. That's all part of the enjoyment of wild food. So you've got to give it a go, guys. It's a lot of fun, and these are better than anything you buy in a shop. Well, I've got quite a few there. I'm quite pleased with my haul. I could certainly get more, but the sun's going down and the midges are beginning to bite, so it's time to head off the hill. But I'll certainly be coming back in a few weeks and getting more of these, because I'd really love to make a windberry pie. I haven't had one of those in years. There's one more berry that you need to know about. I've not come across it in my walk today, which I'm surprised at because it's pretty common. It's the wild strawberry, and it's like the variety that you buy in the shop or grow in your garden, but it's much smaller, like the wild raspberry really. The leaves look the same, it's low growing, and it's one to look out for sure, because although they're small, like a lot of these berries, it really packs a punch. So do look out for the wild strawberry as well. The last berry is a bit of a cheat. It's these here, my black currants, and I'm growing them in my garden as part of my fruit plot. So they're not really a wild variety of berry. But hey, if you've got something tasty that would go with all those wild berries you've collected, why can't you use something that you've grown yourself? So I'm definitely going to use a few of these black currants. Now we are back at home and we've gathered all our berries. It's time to enjoy them. Now, you could just eat them as they are, maybe with a little sprinkling of sugar on top if you want. Or you could add them into some kind of dessert that you really like and make something very special. Now, I've got an idea. I'm going to make a woodland waffle. Now, the woodland waffle isn't just going to have the flavour of all the berries on it. There's a very special ingredient as well that I've made, which is in this jar here, this dark brown syrup. This is birch sap syrup from the birch tree, and I made it this last winter. It's lovely stuff. You know what? You're probably not going to have this. It takes a bit of work to make, but you could use maple syrup. That also comes from a tree, and that's going to give you a flavour from the woods. Now, before making this dessert, I've washed all my berries and I've removed all the little sticks and twigs that fell into the foraging basket when we were out there in the woods, and they are ready to go. Now what we're going to do is take our waffles and sprinkle them with a generous helping of all the different berries, a really good mix of them there. Get those waffles nicely covered. And then next, one ingredient which definitely doesn't come from the woods, although I bet we all wish it did, some ice cream. We're going to have a good dollop of that on top of the waffles. And then lastly, our birch sap syrup or our maple syrup. Give it a little drizzle over the whole dessert on the ice cream. That's going to finish it off very nice. Well, that looks fantastic. I can't wait to dig in. Well, I hope that your mouths are watering after seeing that dessert. It was absolutely top-notch. We ate it all. Now, I made the woodland waffle, but what ideas have you or the kids got? Let's hear about them. Put them in the comments below. Let us know what you did with the wild berries. Did you make your own dessert to them? Did you add them to your favourite dessert? We'd love to hear about it. And I hope that this video has given you and the kids some real confidence in going out and foraging for more than just blackberries. So, that's all for now. Happy foraging.